Folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it looks like we're finally going to get some rain around here. It has been quite a long time since our last good rain, and looks like we're going to get a pretty decent amount today, keeping our fingers crossed. And then tomorrow, it's all day rain in the forecast, and possibly a pretty decent amount. So we definitely need it, and kind of excited, you know. You're living out in the country on a homestead and producing your own food and stuff when you're excited for a rain. Well, there's so much going on in the world today, and it's all heating up, especially on the war front stuff. This stuff with Russia and Ukraine, of Russia claiming that Ukraine is about ready to detonate a dirty bomb inside of Russian territory. That's really gaining a lot of talk. Will it happen? Is it legitimate? Who knows? Guess we'll wait and find out. China and Taiwan, I think this deal with Xi kind of doing his hostile takeover of the CCP and all the saber rattling that they've done is kind of, in a way, and I'm sure it's all been done for purpose, but it's also kind of painted him into the corner that he's almost in a position that he has to invade Taiwan. He has to do something about it. And I wouldn't think he could wait too long before it's going to start making him look weak. North and South Korea, and they're now they're at the point of lobbing missiles, rockets, and artillery shells at each other, giving warning shots. Of course, Israel has been increasing their bombardment of Syria, and then a lot of people are wondering what's going to be done about Iran, because they seem to be upping their game of involvement in just about everything. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, we're not even talking about economic stuff here. That's all kind of getting a little crazy. The markets look real good. If you've got money in there, you could probably make some money for a little while, but a lot of experts believe it's going to be short-lived. And then, of course, the supply chain issues. There's certain areas that are looking better and other areas that have a pretty bleak forecast. But today we're not going to talk about any of that kind of stuff. I just had to tease you or aggravate you or something by mentioning all the doom and gloom. What I wanted to talk today about is medical stuff. I know, it's so boring. None of this uplifting power walk, you can do it. And none of this, this is where the world is standing. This is important stuff, though. My opinion, and it's just my opinion, is that most preppers are drastically underprepared when it comes to medical. You don't have enough. You haven't trained enough. You just don't have enough. There's a lot of really good kits out there on the market that you can buy, anything from a little boo-boo kit all the way up to, what's referred to as an IFAK, which is more of a blowout kit. You're in combat, you got tourniquets and compression bandages and all that kind of stuff. And there's some good ones out there. And the problem is a lot of preppers, they get those and they say, oh, I'm taken care of. I got my medical, Or maybe you buy a little bit bigger kit. Maybe you buy something that a medic would use, or some type of, squad type of kit or something. And you think, I'm good, I got it. My personal opinion is that's good to have, but it's not going to take care of your problems. As a person that has a little homestead, and I'm always doing things around the farm, I can tell you that injuries, and mostly minor injuries, are very, very common. I've got 3 kids still living at home, and they're all very active, and they all get injured all the time. I am always getting injured. My wife, we're always getting injured, and that's true in any home. Little scrapes and bruises and burns and cuts and that kind of stuff, they happen. But they happen typically more often when you're living this lifestyle, because you're just doing more. I'm not sitting watching TV as much. We're doing more things. And so we're becoming injured more. Most of this is minor stuff, not a big deal. Put a Band-Aid on it, spray something on it, clean it, whatever. But they're only really minor because we have the stuff to take care of it. And if they become more than minor, we have a medical system that any of us can go to. As much as we want to complain about things here in America, and especially our medical system, we by far have the best. Anyone, whether you have insurance or money or anything, you can go to any hospital and get emergency treatment for any kind of injury or something. And so we have that dependency of that system. Well, we don't know, but it's quite possible that at some point we won't have that dependency of the system. We won't have that system to depend on. It's also possible that we won't have the supply chain to resupply all the Band-Aids and ointments and creams and bandages and splints and everything else that we might have. And so we have to really think of medical as something very different, where there really is no supply chain, there's no way to resupply, and you're kind of on your own. I understand that some of you have various, there's a lot of variety of medical backgrounds. Some of you are, RNs and paramedics and have military background in medical field. Some of you are surgeons and all these different kinds of things. And some of you do good to put a Band-Aid on. You don't know really anything else. So I understand that there's various levels. The thing is that we all need to have a pretty adequate supply of stuff and have a fairly adequate knowledge of how to treat at least minor things. So going back to these first aid kits, they're great. There's some really good ones. Another YouTuber, Bear Independent, has a company. I'm not affiliated. I get nothing. It's nothing like that. But his kits look to be pretty good. And there are others out there that are very comparable. And while I think those are great, you should have one. I have a first aid kit on me right now to handle most of the things that could happen to me as I'm on this walk. The problem is let's say something happens to me and I use that kit, and then a week later something else happens to me. What about the stuff that I used out of that kit? Do I have something to resupply it? Well, right now the answer would be yes. I can go to the store or I can get online and get a resupply. I think the Rescue Medical ones, it's a lifetime guarantee. If you use something, you call them and they'll replace the contents that are used. But what if that supply chain doesn't exist anymore? What if you can't because there's no supplies, or because of all the many reasons there could be that you cannot resupply that? So having just one first aid kit, or even a couple of those first aid kits, really is not adequate. That's what you should have on you, or in your car, your truck, have in your home. But you need to have your own supply to resupply those kits. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They buy those kits and they think, oh, okay, medical, check, it's taken care of. Well, again, most of those medical supplies, those kits, they're kind of a one-time use thing. They have a couple of bandages in them for an injury, and you take care of that injury, and now you have no more bandages. So there is the problem that many preppers have, is they don't have enough stuff to resupply that. Certainly, like I just said, have a kit probably in every vehicle. You should have one in your home that everyone in the family knows where it's at. So if you're out in the yard, you cut your leg or something like that happens, your wife, your kids, whatever, they know exactly where it's at and they can bring it to you. That's good to have. But what happens when you use the contents out of it? We all should have our own little stockpile of medical supplies. And the thing is that kind of stuff, it's actually not that expensive. You can get a box of 50, 4x4 or 100 or even 1,000 gauze pads. A lot of that Band-Aids, bandages, gauze tape, all that kind of stuff. You can buy that in bulk. You can even, at least some of you, I will say this, can buy the more serious medical stuff. Depending on which state you live in, You might be able to just buy things like IV kits over the counter. You might be able to buy sutures, even surgical kits. Now, I know a lot of you medical people, your heads just exploded and said, you're not actually suggesting that the average Joe try to put in a IV or suture some hand up or something. No, that's not what I'm saying. Number one, you should all try to get some medical training on some level, okay? Even if it's just basic Red Cross first aid skills. That's not going to teach you how to put an IV in, but you should at least have basic first aid skills. Secondly, hopefully, all of you little groups out there have at least one person in that group that has a decent medical background, that knows how to put in an IV, that knows how to suture up a wound, that knows how to do a little bit more major stuff, okay? Because there may come a time that RN that's part of your group becomes a field surgeon because there is no other medical help out there. I've talked to guys that served in combat that were medics and even just regular, soldiers in combat. And they say there's times that they've had to do almost a full-blown surgery out in out in combat just to keep someone alive. And maybe it was crude, but it worked. And so we need to be prepared for that kind of stuff, because the life expectancy right now in America and in the modern Western world is high, but it's only high because we have a developed medical system around us. And when that system fails, or the supply chain to that system fails, or various other reasons that would cause us to not have access to that, then deaths by simple infection of a cut could probably skyrocket. And so you need to have some training, get some books. I know that's not the same as training, but it's certainly better than nothing. And then seek out people, friendships that do have that training, that's willing to show you and say, hey, I know this isn't a full-blown course in how to suture up a hand, so I would never recommend doing this unless it's truly a life or death situation. And if that's the case, you're probably better off in trying it anyways. And then also have the stuff. Like I said, you can get online and you can buy bulk boxes of bandages, bulk boxes of gauze, and even chest seals and all kinds of stuff. Most of it's not terribly expensive. And I would recommend that you kind of start doing that soon, because I've heard from several very good sources, I'll get my words out here in a second, that those are becoming harder and harder to get. A lot of these companies that sell medical supplies, they're saying they're harder to get this stuff. I've talked to two people that work in veterinary offices, that say that they've been having a real hard time over the last 6 months getting the stuff that they need to take care of the animals, the medical stuff. And usually the medical stuff for the animals is pretty much the same thing as for people. There's been more and more in the news of various drugs that are becoming in short supply. I mentioned Adderall the other day. There was another article about insulin. People trying to stockpile insulin because in some areas and certain types it's becoming harder to get. Don't let this become a problem for you. It's not going to do you any good to have hundreds or even thousands of pounds of food stored away and thousands of rounds of ammunition and all your little homestead perfectly made if you don't have the adequate medical stuff to keep you alive to use it. Just yesterday, I was walking through our field. and there was something out in the field under the grass. Tripped on it and face planted right into the grass. I was okay, got a few scrapes on me, but what if I'd landed on something when I'd done that and had a major injury? And what if that happened when we weren't able to go to a hospital, or a hospital didn't exist, or doctors, and we had to figure out a way to take care of it here at the homestead? Because in the days that are coming, every person on your homestead, you, your spouse, your children, you all are very valuable. Not just in the love and the emotion. Yeah, no one wants their spouse or their child to die. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about a valuable asset to keeping everything running. At least that's the way you should have it set up. And so if someone is down for a while or even dead, it poses a very big problem to your homestead, and it would be really bad if that happened because you were just ill prepared. I mean, there's some injuries and tragedies that cannot be avoided, but it'd be pretty bad if it happened just because you didn't have enough bandages to bandage a wound, or to stop the bleeding, or to, keep it safe from infection, or, all that kind of stuff. So make sure that you have adequate medical supplies. Get you some books on medical training. I've gone to used bookstores. I've got several that I've picked up at used bookstores that are paramedic books that they would go get in, training. They're actual textbooks, things like that, nursing, paramedics. You can pick those up sometimes really cheap at used bookstores. There's all kinds of first aid and field surgery, field doctor handbooks that you can get. Sometimes you can find local classes to take. There's all kinds of online videos on it. And then, like I said, many of you have friends or even people within your little prepper group that have medical training. And those people need to be cross-training the rest of you. They need to teach you as much as they can about the things that they know about. Because maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that the medical stuff is what's really going to bite a lot of people in the hindquarters. And then I'm not even going to go into it other than mentioning medicine's the same way. Over-the-counter medicine, prescription medicines, and then herbal medicines, you need to have as much as you can stocked away. Because here's another thing. The vast majority of medicines and medical supply stuff come from overseas, predominantly China. And if there's a possibility that we're about ready to have a war with China, and all of our medical stuff comes from there, that's a really, really bad plan to just hope that we'll still be able to get it. Folks, get your medical stuff locked down. Like I said, it's not terribly expensive. I know some of you are on an extremely tight budget, but if you order 1 or 2 $10 or $15 boxes of bandages every month and just add to that every month a little bit more in different areas, you'll have a pretty decent supply after a while. It's time to get your houses in order, folks. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.